Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we're going to take a look at some really cool books that I have managed to pick up recently. None of these books are anything crazy special, but they are cool, and a couple of them actually put me closer to achieving a goal project that I've been working on for some time. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at what I picked up. The first book that I'll show you is just a really cool book. This is Keys and Grails issue number 1. The guy Rat136 is someone that I know from a comic shop in California, and he makes these really awesome corner art pins, and I've actually purchased some pins from him in the past, but he put together a comic that essentially contains all of the pins that he has made, and so I thought this was a really cool book to pick up. I actually snagged 2 copies of this from him. And recently I got hooked on some classic horror movies, and I'm talking truly classic stuff. And what got my attention was the director of The Thing made it known that he was potentially working on a sequel of sorts. There's been a sequel, but one that he is actually working on. So that got me to dig back into the archives, and I rewatched the original Thing movie from the 80s. I watched the remake from the 2000s. And I got really frisky, and I took a look at the original from the 50s. Loved all 3. Absolutely enjoyed myself watching and rewatching some of those movies. I also discovered that there was a comic as well, something that I did not know. I immediately found copies of it and was able to read it. This is The Thing from Another World. This is actually a 2-part story arc from Dark Horse. Yeah, from Dark Horse. So I was feeling super frisky and got on the eBay machine and picked up a couple of copies for just a few bucks. And as I mentioned, there was a 2-parter, so I actually was able to find a really nice copy of issue number 2 as well. I do not think that I'm going to get any of these graded because I think that's typically a question that people ask. I bought the books because I wanted to read them, and I also thought that it was cool to have a piece of a movie, if you will, that I really enjoyed. The comic was great, and of course the movies were as well. If you have not seen those, I recommend you treat yourself and check them out. Even the one from the 50s was not bad. It was very different in terms of cinematography and storytelling, but still enjoyable nevertheless. I equate it to reading a comic from like the 70s. That's kind of how it felt to me. Good yet different. Next up, I want to show you guys a couple of books that I've been picking up. I think many of you probably saw these books in my background before because I'm working on picking up all 9.8 copies of Marvel Presents Weapon X. And this is, I thought it was going to be an easier task than it is. It's actually a little difficult just because there are not a lot of graded copies of these books out there, much less at a 9.8. But I'm making progress. This is Marvel Comics Presents issue number 81. Really awesome black cover right here, and this one was not easy to find. I can't remember where I bought this from, but I know that I paid $115 for it. People have been asking me to talk a little bit more about what it is that I pay for books, so I wanted to mention that. This is a 9.8 white pages. $115 is what this one cost me. And the next kind of sort of 2 books are essentially the same. This is Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X, another black cover. This is issue number 76, 9.8 white pages. I paid $89 for this one. $89 for this. This is not an easy book to find, but the book showed up, and I bought it knowing that there was a slight defect with it. It is a 9.8, but there is actually a little smudge mark right there. Not a bad copy, but that smudge mark kind of jumped out at me, and I managed to find another copy. There was another copy that actually popped up on eBay, and I decided to get it because it did not have the smudge mark. So we actually got a CBCS 9.8 of basically the exact same book minus the smudge mark. And I picked this one up for, what did I pay for this one? $164.95. $164.95 is what I paid for this. I am one book away from completing the full run of Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X. Fingers crossed that I can find this book at a 9.8. I've only seen a couple of copies of it online, period, and 9.8. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I have a couple of searches saved out there, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to locate a copy of it. And when I do, you will see all of those books displayed on the wall back there. I actually have a bin off to the side where I keep these. Barry Windsor-Smith did a fantastic job in this story arc. It was a book, a series that I read as a kid. I read it again as an adult. It is still fantastic, and that is part of what prompted me to actually go out and get all 9.8s, because it is one of my favorite story arcs. With that said, before we wrap up this video, I want to tell you guys about a giveaway that I'm doing. I showed this book earlier. I have 2 copies of it. I'm giving away 1 copy of it as as just a giveaway. And I'm combining it with a very large book. This is Invincibles Compendium 2. I think this thing is like 1,000 pages or something like that. I'm going to be giving away this book along with keys and grails to 1 lucky Patreon member. So if you like the content that comes out here from the channel, I want to encourage you to join Patreon, and by joining Patreon before July 1st, you will be entered into a giveaway to win this big book along with that awesome comic over there. If you check out the description of this video, there is a link for you to be able to join up. You can join for as little as $5. It's a way of giving a little something back to the channel. If you don't want to do that, that is perfectly fine. I would encourage you then to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because that's another way of giving back to the channel, if you will, simply by tapping that button and turning on notifications. It helps, trust me when I tell you. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care. If you're feeling frisky, head over to SWOLDIERpublishing.com to support our Kickstarter for Isolation Issue 4. Multiple packages are available.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo. Should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan. Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combinations. You fly and we waiting. Indian style in the gold.